Who deserves a seat at the table in the Mushroom Kingdom? It's a frivolous question, of course, but still, who gets to pose at the finish line? This particular title screen evokes a primal nostalgia in me, the voices chattering before the lights turn on implying a comfortable familiarity that our main players share when the camera isn't on. And to my genuine surprise, despite my love for him, I've never really paid our incendiary in the corner over there much mind. It's hard to imagine our group without old Robert. In our age inundated with IP, a kid's t-shirt rack or convenience store toy aisle surely has him somewhere in it. And yet, have you considered him in full? While he's in silhouette, picture him. Does he have a turnkey, arms, a fuse? Look at him in our present day, strapped to the back of a car, wriggling in agony, the slightest nudge away from oblivion. What do we make of this? Must we imagine bob-omb happy? And you're telling me the cow gets a license in this one? It's foul. Foul on every level, and I think it's time somebody tells his story. The curse of having an everyone is here moment is the inevitable and subconscious expectation that all multiplayer rosters reach a similar fever pitch. I understand that every game isn't served by overstuffing the cast with all the pics you might find on a message board signature. I honestly think Smash is already a bit on the other side of tacky. Tackiness is a hard to name but obvious quality that seems to be creeping into more and more multiplayer games. So there are some omissions that are clearly in service of the greater aesthetic that Mario Kart World has going for it. A cohesive mood that is easy to intuit and is rewarding to find was quite intentional in the developer interviews. I miss Tanuki Suit, of course I do, but the road trip wouldn't be quite the same if that was one of Mario's costumes. Understanding the need to replicate the Smash roster's wow factor is likely why Mario Kart World has its numerous costumes and drivers laid out in such a sprawling and cumbersome menu. I know I gave Cow guff earlier, don't get me wrong, I truly do welcome her addition. The NPC drivers are the obvious show stealers in World. I've been lucky enough to have big group sessions where people get to experience the game for the first time, and the likes of Fishbone and Penguin are always the crowd pleasers. But for how large the roster is, there are some people obviously missing. And it seems most of those major omissions are being withheld specifically so they can charge us for them later. And this, no doubt, has an odor most rank. But even above that, I find bob-omb's absence far more striking. This incredibly charming concept art for World convinced art director Masaki Ishikawa of the direction for this game's roster. Each new Mario Kart game features new characters to race with, but since we added so many to the previous game, we wondered where we could go from there. And then one of the designers came up with that silly sketch of Cow cruising along, and I thought to myself, this is it. The character designer quickly put together a prototype of Cow that could race, and surprisingly, it didn't feel out of place at all. As a result, the idea of taking obstacle characters, usually found in courses in past games, and having them participate in races made sense to me. And so I ask you now, who is more obstacle than bob-omb? I'm over the moon to play as Goomba and Chuck, and I'm sure there's someone out there cheesing their cream over this guy being here, but isn't it obvious that somebody's missing? I've got more Mario facts in my head than I do names of loved ones, I'm sure, but when I began to piece together bob-omb's history, I was sort of surprised to realize he was absent for the first Super Mario. Bob-omb has reached a level of ubiquity that he tends to go unnoticed. Now, I realize this could easily veer into reading the Super Mario wiki page for bob-omb out loud, and that is sort of the kind of video this is, don't get it twisted, this is far more indulgent than anything else I've made so far, but I want you to understand that I'm doing this out of love. Chain Chomp gets a tennis racket, Blooper gets to go to the party, and the guy who throws up spike balls gets to drive. Come on. I don't begrudge them, obviously, but someone has to be his champion. Someone has to want to play as bob-omb. Identity is a nebulous and transient thing in the Mushroom Kingdom. The Great Double Cherry Paradox being the most obvious example of this. It seems it's a Schrödinger scenario where all are the real Mario until the last one is left standing, and even this is just a more obvious example of the truth most face in the first few minutes of playing a Mario game. Beyond this looking glass, permanent death is the exception rather than the rule. Our blocky wonderland is struck with this paradoxical self. You and you as a baby and you that one time you put on a weird hat can and should race together without question or answer. That's what it means to live in Mario World. A dreamlike reading of its game rules as world building is an unspoken delight. Toad can be both guy and species. Everyone kind of knows that the Toad is this one, and almost certainly this one, but not this one, which is why the Toad in World only wears an outfit that sort of looks like that one. The Yoshi is deemed more Yoshi than the rest by nature of just kind of being the most Yoshi, and the audience sort of just gets it. And that's how I feel about him, too. I want to try and define who bob-omb is, the schematic the rest are based on, the one that's always there to replace the other, the platonic ideal of him, the bob-omb, the bob-omb, Robert. We first met Robert when he was thrown at us by a bird in a dream Mario had about a real adventure he went on in Dream World that was prophesied in another dream he had, or at least that's what the manual tells us. God bless 80s and 90s localization. And these questionably written things are what we have to comb for any scraps of characterization and story. And these two sentences offer most of what we need to know about Bob's early life. He has a terrible temper. When he gets angry, he explodes. So, short fuse, if you will. Around this time, I was just old enough to like watching people play games, but not really able to myself. So the early Mario cartoons were where I first got to have my own personal love for the crew. These shows are a hilarious and bizarre relic of the time, and as much as I'd love to talk about how she kills it as a brunette and the insanity of King Koopa making his minions lick his feet, we really don't have time today. In these shows, bob-omb gets a surprising amount of appearances, and exploding never seems to bother him too much.
First, you bombs are gonna blow up this Brooklyn Bridge! Yeah!
And true to the manual, he certainly does have a short fuse.
I'll bet you're a dud. Bet you won't even explode.
Oh, yeah? Watch. Hey, Papa! Did anyone ever tell you you were ugly? I've seen better-looking bombs after they exploded. I bet you have to sneak up on a match just to get a light.
Notice again how he looks in Mario 2. See his meaty little pink arms. How the NES sprite has no fuse. Ogle his little fleshy mitts on the SNES. In my passion, I feel compelled to show you all the ways he's been rendered. By the release of Mario 2, the core cast's designs have more or less been ironed out, give or take a few finer details. But in these early years, we see bob-omb going through many changes. The Japanese manual showing him with curious pupiled eyes, a feature seen here and only once more in the strange IBM-published Mario Net Quest. Now, a character action game almost requires a guy who blows up. If it wasn't Robert, it would have been someone else. Convergent evolution of this type can be seen everywhere, but there is a simplistic elegance to bob-omb's design. You know exactly what he does the first time you see him without anyone needing to say a word. That's why I want him in the driver's seat and not King Bob-omb. The clock's ticking, we truly don't have time to talk about him today, just know I loathe his obnoxious Pringles can-looking mug, and his design shares none of Robert's brilliant elegance. I know that if a bob-omb is ever to drive, it likely will be him, and if that day comes and you choose to drive as him and we share the road together, know that it will be on sight. May the regicide one day stick. I really doubt anyone but me has made bob-omb their end goal of a playthrough in a Mario game, but that's how I find myself engaging with these games as I get as much footage as I can for myself. I suppress a little squeal of delight when I see that he finally has his turn key in Mario 3, and true, his manual art shows that by now he's pretty much found his look. The NES sprite seems to be the direct inspiration for his design in the '93 live-action movie. I can appreciate this film for the weird place it has in Mario's history now, but as a little boy I was severely disappointed by its obvious disinterest in being a straight adaptation. Rightly, though, it's understood that Robert needs no real grungy overhaul, being perfect exactly as he is. His turn key sticks directly out of his side instead of his back, seeming to be a misinterpretation of the NES sprite, but other than the Reebok branding on his shoes, he's about exactly how you'd want him. I question how deep I need to go into his appearances. It's as I'm cataloging and sharing things like his appearance on this old ball-throwing arcade game that I ask myself not if this is a huge waste of my time and yours, but instead realize that this is completely awesome. All this vintage art rules. While I really can't show you every time bob-omb has appeared, I feel invigorated to give him his flowers. You get that he's been in some Mario Party minigames, and guess what, folks? He blows up in those. I don't know if it's important that you see his minor appearances in the Game & Watch Gallery games, but I found the ones I could anyways, and I thank the people who shared their footage with me. Even with my great love, there is only so far I'm willing to go myself. And as much as I understand this is probably the only chance I'll have to gush about the adorable official art for these games, TikTok and all that. If it wasn't obvious by now, by Mario 64 it should be clear that bob-omb has interiority. They are a people. They have factions, jobs, and the RPGs go one step further, with characters like Bombette and Bobbery being full party members. We even get a glimpse at what a civilization of bob-ombs might look like, and I guess Space Race Russians makes just about as much sense as anything else. Bob-ombs have spoken before and since, of course, but the first two Paper Mario games make it clear that to explode is to be when you are a bob-omb. It's as casual as spinning in your shell. Now, I'm sure the Bobby fans in the audience are hooting and hollering by now, and to be frank, I haven't actually played Origami King. But if you want my honest opinion as an outside observer, the only reason he and his fellow bob-ombs die when they explode in that game is because it's really, really, really funny. The way bob-ombs are treated in this game could be seen as a soft retcon of sorts, a reflection of the flattening and deflavorization that the world building in the RPGs and, honestly, the series as a whole has been cursed with. But I view it as just another weird role for a guy who's had many. Mario Wonder has bob-ombs animated in a rigid, robotic fashion, and more it seems he's treated as item first and character second. But still, as I play through Mario vs. Donkey Kong for the first time to find his appearance there, I begin to notice that many characters in this world have the trademark turnkey, and being an automaton doesn't seem to exclude you from personhood in a world like this. I've looked long and hard for any playable appearances of our dear friend, and I found only one. While he was featured in a few of the pack-in minigames that came with the DS Mario entries, it's in New Super Mario Bros. DS where you take on the role of a bob-omb buddy trying not to be ignited in, I guess what must be Bowser's basement torture dungeon. And it's when I make this discovery that I realize that maybe this should be the only time we play as Bob. Now, I'm sure the pedants out there are going to bring up Mario Kart 64, but I don't see no face, Robert, that ain't. And I guess there's a kind of poetic justice in an obscure minigame that ends in annihilation being the only time we can really be bob-omb. Even with a loose, everything is canon view of his story, it's one that's brief. One that always ends a certain way, and maybe being playable in a mainstream game is outside of the grasp of weird little guys who tend to blow up. So let's return to his latest appearance in Mario Kart World with a more informed understanding. I think to bob-omb, the tantalizing, gasp-inducing roller coaster drop moments before eruption must be bliss. Perhaps we must view him happy, and to wriggle in place fit to burst and bulging at the seams, my god, that might be the closest to nirvana a guy like him could ever get. Shame it's so fun to do this.